South Africa is a buzz with a lot of content right now as far as rap. Shit, I'm sniveling. This winter's been harsh, yo. It's been really harsh. Nonetheless, South Africa's been a buzz with a lot of interesting rap music coming out. A lot of it kind of does typical vitriol on our twist on trap music. So if you are anywhere on the continent or on the country proper, this review focuses on a particular album, but I'm using it as an opportunity to dwell on the possibilities of where this South African trap sound is ultimately going to go. I've reviewed a lot of projects which are on the margin of classical rap, and they kind of dip into this place where it's just trap, which, as you probably know if you're a fan of the channel, but if you don't, I, VJ, regard trap as a completely different phenomenon. Yes, it is an extension of rap. Motherfuckers are out there singing melodically, switching it up, and sometimes using their own oral capacity to kind of use their voice. But by and large, stylistically, sonically, come on. Trap music is a different phenom and echelon of its own. And I think it's about time we understand when something becomes something else. Because we risk having the very powerful legacy of trap being classified under rap, or even worse, hip-hop, when the values, the attitude, the lifestyle of trap artists is completely antithesis to rap and hip-hop in general. Many of these motherfuckers have come out against many of rappers that are considered important in rap as a core culture. If that doesn't tell you that we are in the midst of something very different, I don't know what will. Maybe this review will. But I want to step into DJ Clen, coming from the very prolific and active what's the record label that is?
Revenge Club.
The Revenge Club. I like the name. Now the Revenge Club is basically a posse with A Reese at the helm, which you can call a new age Pitori rap renaissance, ushering in the new artists of Pretoria in ways that, well, are unapologetically global in style. I mean, they don't even really regard the nuances of South African culture. These motherfuckers don't rap in ways that are kind of immediately reflective of the general politics and even movement and style of the people. But what they do is they create a very, very interesting opportunity to step into something that I have to teach about now. See, this is the moment I'm here to school. There is something called liminality. Takeza, you should probably have the word somewhere here with the definition. Now, liminality is a concept that has been conceptualized by anthropologists who basically studied indigenous people from different parts of the world. And when I say indigenous, please don't close your eyes and get this picture of black or dark-skinned people. Indigenous just means people in their own abode and in their own environment. So if you're a foreigner and you're in a place where you do not come from there, you're not born from there, and as a result, you do not have direct contact with the culture, you are witnessing indigenous people, and you are what can be called exogenous. I don't really like the word foreign. We're not really foreign to each other like that, but that's another conversation. So this term emerged as these scholars were noticing that in every ritual, as you go from phase to phase, as you go from the gender norms of your culture, the things that are expected of you that keep moving and changing, there is a point where you're at the middle, where you're not yet a man, but you're definitely not a boy. For instance, there's a point of middleness, of being in between, where your existence is aspiring towards the next step while still being in the constant continuity of movement. So you cannot be classified as what you came from, but you definitely cannot be classified as where you're going either. And I think this concept is super important because it opens up a way of thinking about development that doesn't classify things in a binary form. We mean as two things, either this or that. Because if you will notice anything about life, there are nuances. there are things where all the time, even as you identify with whatever you are, be it black, gay, plus size, you are more than that. You are something that cannot be defined and is in the active process of being defined. And that is why people who cannot grasp this understanding of liminality find it hard to adapt to cultural change. Because for them, you've either got to be this or that. They can't see that there's a point in culture. There's a point in life in general where you're neither this or that. You're something in between. Something that demands to be investigated with a fresh perspective. Why am I bringing up this concept of liminality? Trap music, or the trap sound in the world at large, particularly in South Africa, is in a liminal place. It's in a place where if you're adopting it as a South African, you are very much not South African anymore, because it forces you into the channel of a slang, of a accentuation, of a culture, of a referencing, of a coding that doesn't really immediately have anything to do with who you are and the culture you come from. But also, you're not American either. Because as much as you can try to mimic and be influenced by something that expands your South African identity, where you're not quite that South African, you're in a place that's interestingly middle, where people who have classic South African experiences, and when I say classic South African experiences, they are vast and they are varied. But my critique with SA rappers who are using trap is that they do not use it in a way that tries to South Africanize trap. They speak in a way where, I mean, apart from your posse of people who are really enamored by American culture, the large majority of people don't really speak like that. And maybe that's the whole point, is that you're something new. And you have the right to be South African in that way. And that's why it's interesting. Because you're in the middle of something interesting. And you are becoming something that most people don't really understand. But also, the place where you glean your influence from probably wouldn't understand you fully either. Because you don't come from where they come from. So, thus is the predicament of the South African trap rapper or trapper. They are in this place where they risk alienating themselves from their own culture and alienating themselves from the culture they're inspired by. And so they're in this place that's in the middle. And where they go in this place is determined by how much they understand of where they are. DJ Clen has been doing his thing for a good minute. He's a producer who's really done the classic South African sound and worked with South African artists who are both vintage, quote-unquote progressive, alternative. I mean, the pockets are vast, and therefore he's probably the perfect guy to be part of the landscape of this interesting movement that's happening with these successful acts who are a mixture of both young guns and OGs. So here we have the project Viral, and I think that alone speaks to the liminality again. Going viral is a transient moment. It doesn't last. And it doesn't last because virality, if that's a word, doesn't understand where to go. If you say something or do something and it trends, you've captured an attention that is really based on people's understanding of what you're doing. And that you could either use as a moment to consciously steer yourself to a place where you are aware of the challenges of where you're going, or you can allow the wave to drive you. And by large and far, most artists in this time are allowing the wave to drive them, and therefore they rise with it and they sink with it. And there are very few artists who have used trend to transcend trend. Kenton Poise artists like Shoma Josie, who making a song about John Cena opens up the path for Americans to be interested. And when she's on American TV shows and as John Cena doing her dance, she uses that to transfer her own unique identity. That right there is how you go from the place in the middle to a point where you're about to start again. So now, can South African trap start a renaissance, a revolution, where our young rappers are recognized as being akin to the trap culture, but also bringing something new? I'm going to use this project as the case study for that, because it really doesn't give anything new. It's the project that we hear from artists like Mash Beats. It's the project that we will hear from any other real solo producer who's kind of getting a buzz around well-known artists in this generation of AMA 2000. Therefore, trap as it exists in South Africa hasn't identified itself beyond its influences, and therefore it's still stuck in this liminal place. It's still stuck in the middle. DJ Clen goes into 14 tracks of an extension that I call Cruise Control. It's a fantasy of forward motion, and a lot of producers nowadays who specialize in the trap sound like to borrow from the kind of trap that is like an ode to the palm tree breeze, easygoing party Californian style. So I'm going to call it Mzansi Californication. This Mzansi Californication is them attempting to reinvent a wheel that's been tried and tested in the USA, but might not weather the musical potholes of the South African artistic traffic. If you get what I mean, it's a bunch of young guys who are influenced by a sound that comes from overseas, and they take Ubu Orkant to such an extent that it only gels with the generation that they connect with immediately. Them are 2000s, if you will. And as a result, AMA 2000 as a whole are a generation in liminal. They are still young enough to be considered children. I mean, in the sense of maturity and outlook, because they have not yet reflected a real grounded understanding of the politics and history of their country. But also, I mean, they're old enough to have jobs at this moment. And yet, millennials, both late and early millennials and everybody before them, will look at them as proverbial kids. Because we see something. We see that liminal place where you're going somewhere, but you still don't know where it is. And that concerns the generation before, because we feel like we've been there in a way. This is why, if you zap back, this is why Squatter Camp changed themselves and classified their sound. This is why Pro Kid changed himself and classified his sound. This is why the resurgence of something called Kasi Rap became an actual thing. This is why the golden era of South African hip-hop is mainly a bunch of motherfuckers who are either from or affiliated with Soweto or Mafi Gang. It's that place where the generation before found where their liminality could go and went into some of the most novel places. Because again, here's the important thing about being in the middle space. You either go where no man has gone before, a new place, what I like to call authenticity, or you try to reinvent the wheel because you don't have an understanding of what's been done before. And because of that, you're ignorant to the fact that what you're doing has been done even better. And if you took the time to go back, you'd see that. And that would improve you. So yeah, it goes in. And it's interesting because structurally this project is like a half and half between OGs and young guns. And to be honest with you, the OGs highlight this project with interesting glimmers. They are the ones who kind of rap in a way that exudes more poise and social commentary. And I know the young kids might be watching and be like, so what the fuck? Who cares? You know who cares? Time. If you look at the greatest songs, they are the songs that happen to be dope, but they were saying a little something. the younger acts on this project seem to just be funneling into this, you know, life where they're still partying and enjoying themselves, which is not bad. There are artists who have given us their party mode, but still made us conscious of what the party mode is, the demons of the party mode, the joys of the party mode. Case in point, an artist like Maglera. He's becoming legendary because he's the only artist of his generation who seems to understand how to go about his liminality. He's in a place that's not yet there, but I mean, we all see it's going there. And we all see it's going somewhere that we don't know. But we know that it's probably going to be good if he keeps going at this rate. So as a result, for me, the highlight of youth in this project has to be the song Shark Attack, which ironically feels sonically like the moment where the project goes from, again, this Californian being in the breeze and enjoying your life, and you are Jay Jody talking about bitches and struggle, going into the actual depth. And an artist like the one who models the song takes it to an interesting place, and I want to talk about that. Latin Over Pounds and Boozy Lee take this song and they reflect this interesting place that, again, is a liminality that feels aware of itself. And it's not the fact that they're rapping in their indigenous tongue. It's the fact that they're using this trap sound as a mirror for their own experiences. Therefore, we have something sensational. Other aspects to this project that really prune it up are what I feel are the intentional duels of great lyricists being put together. Tony Scar features on the one side the very liminal himself, Touchline, rapping alongside seasoned veteran of lyrical skill Mzansi Ginger Trill. And I mean, it's the collaboration anybody who's interested about bars in South Africa wanted to hear. And I feel like it's an interesting point because Ginger reflects the self-awareness more than Touch. Touch literally borrows from the diplomatic immunity Drake flow. Maybe you could put that in there just to see the parallels. And that's kind of underwhelming because if you've listened to Touchline's catalog, that's not how he raps. So I'm interested into where did he think and why did he think he needed to come into a world that makes him feel pretty average, when the way he raps, which is kind of like this novel, updated version of a new pro kid with like Model C credentials, is a refreshing experience. So again, the struggle of knowing the liminal place. We go into another combination that's by far probably the lyrical highlight of the whole project. P. Dodo raps alongside another legendary wordsmith through Mugs, and they're just popping some grown man shit in a way that feels matured, well-oiled, and self-aware. They know that a lot of the kids probably aren't going to be fucking with it, but it has a place because it lends itself enough to what's new, but it keeps the integrity of what they know how to do naturally. And that's how you navigate the liminal place. Going to another OG, El Tito, who, as usually, doesn't really deliver any lyrical punches because he's generally an underwhelming rapper, comes with a verse which teaches me, and I think in extension could teach the audience, that sometimes when the skill isn't immediately present, the charisma is the thing to push you through. And here we have it at El Tito, basically gusto, talking his shit to a point where he controversially says he's responsible for KO's career. Interesting question mark to dangle on the industry, and I love the fact that El Tito probably knows he doesn't have half the penmanship of most of these artists on this project, but he uses what works. He gets ears wagging. So ultimately, this project is a question mark in and of itself, and it feels like the artists who are in the driving force still are not aware of how to make trap authentically South African. So for me, it's a 6 to 7 out of 10 at best. 6 proper, if I'm being really honest, because there are days where it could probably align itself with a broader sound, and if you're playing this in certain settings, it would feel with more bombast. But come on, we're not always at the club, and we're not always in a place that lends itself to fucking debauchery. A lot of the times, albums are made by the evolution of how they work with people as they listen to them in their private moments as well. And for me, this one kind of falls short. So, DJ Clen himself is an amazing producer. A. Reese is an amazing lyricist. Black Glares is an amazing veteran rapper, and so forth and so forth. This team is probably complete. It's kinda singing, but it feels like there's still the question of how do we navigate an international sound in a South African way? How do we go from the liminal to the place of authenticity? My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother. Thanks for painstakingly tolerating my flu. It is what it is. Love you.